Hello. We're here today to talk about incrementality, and I wanted to ask you what marketers need to know about incrementality and to start off by defining our terms. So, what is incrementality, Maddie?
Sure. So I think the term has made its rounds amongst most marketing circles now, but incrementality refers to the actual impact or lift that marketing activities have on a business that aren't occurring as a result of any other activities.
Okay. And so, what kind of experiments could you run to figure that out?
Yeah, sure. So, we would call any experiments that measure incrementality experiments, also called lift experiments or conversion lift experiments. But these are essentially tests that we run to help us isolate the incrementality that marketing is driving for a business so that we're able to make better decisions about how to spend our marketing budget. And so, what kind of tests can we run? We can run tests where we're trying to measure the impact of a specific channel. We can measure the impact of an entire program with multiple channels in it. We can measure the rate of diminishing returns across the channel, and we can also compare things like media mixes. But there are a few questions we can answer, but it typically all revolves around trying to isolate the impact that marketing is having on a business.
Maybe because I know too much, but these sound complicated to me. Are there ways that maybe team of one or team of three marketers can run this on their own? Like, is there a way to be scrappy about your incrementality testing?
Yes and no. I think any team of marketing can decide to pause a channel that they might be questioning the value of. The most common example would be brand search. A lot of the times, marketers will take a look at their SEO and their SEM efforts and think, brand search is cannibalizing our SEO traffic. That's the most common example that you could think of. And they can pause that spend and they can take a look at, the SEO traffic across those branded terms in Search Console and see, did we get a lift, and try to kind of gauge the effect in that kind of manner. This happens a lot of the time. Marketing teams decide they want to just double their budget in a channel because things are looking good and they have a good feeling about XYZ strategy. So yes, teams can be scrappy and that happens all the time, but I wouldn't necessarily call that incrementality experimentation. When we actually set up a strong experiment, you're typically working with a marketing science team. You are building a predictive model about the outcome that you're looking to measure. You have credible or confidence intervals around that outcome so that when you actually measure a result, you can understand the range of probable outcomes under which your result could have landed. So you're able to really isolate and contextualize the result. If you decide to just pause a channel and see what happens, you could do that. And there could be a number of confounding variables. You won't get a solid read on CPA or ROAS, and it can lead to a lot of poor inference or, I guess, false positives or negatives. So the idea behind structuring a solid experiment is building your confidence that you're going to measure something effectively and you're going to be able to move forward from that.
I see. So it sounds like what you're telling me is that precision is kind of the difference there. Like broadly making changes and hoping that it works is a lot different than like a properly constructed incrementality test.
Yeah, absolutely. And precision is a tough word because I think that's also a false pretense under which people get involved with these experiments. We're not looking for precision. We're looking for informed outcomes that help us isolate other variables and understand marketing's true impact. But that's never going to come down to 5.05. It's never going to come down to a super granular result, but it does help us detach what we think is happening from what is actually happening. So yes, and I think even beyond what we measure, getting into thinking about experiments and actually planning them out helps us make better decisions as well, because oftentimes marketers will launch a channel. It might be 5% of their budget or 10% of their budget, and they think, all right, we'll see if this works well. But they didn't put enough budget behind that channel to even measure an impact. And so we end up running with a bunch of half-baked strategies, a bunch of half-baked results, and we don't have enough information to confidently scale. And I think the other thing is that I think being scrappy is good, and experimenting and testing is something you should always be doing. And I would always promote that, whether or not you're doing a formal experimentation. But as businesses scale and they're putting millions and millions behind certain channel strategies, there's a lot of inherent risk with making these bigger changes. And so it's really important. And I think that the pre-test analysis of these experiments is often underemphasized or overlooked, but that's actually really important because you need to establish a hypothesis, understand the minimum effect size you're going to need going in, and kind of align on, okay, well, how long do we think we're going to run? What do we think we're going to gain, or what do we think we're going to lose? And move forward transparently with those key elements in mind.
That's interesting because it almost seems like oftentimes measurement and data is brought in as like a post-mort. Like we did this thing and now
Yeah.
you get to dig through the body of the work. And what it sounds like you're telling us is that it's actually better to bring on your data and measurement team, especially for incrementality, early on before you, like as you're creating the hypothesis and the experiment. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think a lot of the time we are tasked with, oh, we did this thing. Can you measure the outcome? And that's never how we want to approach a situation. Our team, I work with Thrive's Data and Measurement. We want to be partners throughout the entire process. So we want to help design an experiment that's going to lead to the best outcomes. So we're not wasting anyone's time or budget. And that, I think the number of tests that fail because they were, I guess, founded on poor hypotheses or a lack of attention when it comes to the prior data analysis is disappointing because then people stop believing in the process to begin with. And what's really important is that we do invest in the time to build good experiments so that we move forward with more confidence, and also so that we build better buy-in for marketing budgets outside of the marketing department.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you feel like I missed in asking you about incrementality?
I think right now marketers are really thinking about incrementality as another tactic that they can add to their tool belt. But I would say what's more important is framing media decisions through the lens of a minimum detectable effect and incrementality and credible intervals. Then we're going to start moving towards wiser decisions, and we're going to stop shooting in the dark and misattributing outcomes or failing to observe effects. The net sum is that we are applying kind of these principles towards better decisions that are outside of just merely, you ran a test and you got an outcome, where again, we're looking to build more confidence in the overall program and the overall direction that we're moving in.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.